London's grey morning drizzled softly against the iron gates of Buckingham Palace, where tourists gathered, phones raised, eager to capture a slice of royal life. But no one, least of all Marcus Thompson, a cheerful tourist from Chicago, knew that in a matter of seconds laughter would vanish into stunned silence. He thought he was pulling a harmless prank, a splash of coffee, a bit of fun, a video for his friends back home. Yet what followed would spark headlines, diplomatic tension, and a lesson the internet would never forget. Because when you treat a royal guard as a joke, you might just find out how far duty, dignity, and discipline truly go. If stories of unexpected consequences and real-life emotion keep you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful true story moments, and share it with someone who loves royal history or human transformation tales. All right, ready to see how one prank turned into an international lesson in respect and redemption? The skies over London carried that familiar silver tone, calm yet watchful, like the city itself knew that something was about to happen. Tourists moved in flocks across the courtyard of Buckingham Palace, their umbrellas glistening in the drizzle. Among them was Marcus Thompson, a 25-year-old from Chicago, cheerful, restless, and always the joker of the group. He'd flown across the Atlantic with his girlfriend Sarah to celebrate their anniversary. But for Marcus, sightseeing was never enough. He wanted stories, the kind of you won to believe what happened, tales he could brag about back home. The double-decker buses, the accents, the history, it all thrilled him. But what fascinated him most were the royal guards. He had spent hours online watching videos of tourists trying to make them laugh, move, or speak. None ever succeeded. They just stand there, Marcus had laughed on the plane, like robots in fancy coats. Sarah had rolled her eyes. Marcus, please don't. Those guards are soldiers, not entertainers. But Marcus only smirked. Come on, babe, what's the harm? They're used to it, it's just a bit of fun. By the time their trip reached Buckingham Palace, Marcus had a plan, what he called his Royal Guard adventure. He'd record a little prank for his social media page. The idea? Pretend to take a selfie, accidentally spill a bit of coffee on a guard, then act over-the-top apologetic. It would get laughs, maybe even go viral. In his mind, it was harmless comedy.
The rain had slowed to a mist that morning as he held his steaming coffee from a nearby stand. Sarah stood a few steps behind him, her arms folded, whispering, "Marcus, please, don't do this." He grinned, adjusting his camera. "Relax, it's all part of the trip. Watch, he won't even blink." Before them stood a guard, tall, broad-shouldered, the deep crimson of his uniform immaculate. His rifle rested firmly against his shoulder, his eyes forward, unflinching. That was Lance Corporal James Mitchell, though Marcus didn't know his name then. He only saw a uniform, not the soldier behind it. Marcus approached, pretending to fumble with his phone. "Excuse me, mate," he said in a playful mock British accent. "Mind if I get a quick photo?" The guard didn't move. Not a flicker, not a glance. To Marcus, that was all the confirmation he needed. "Sarah, get this," he called out, raising his coffee cup for dramatic effect. Other tourists noticed too. Some chuckled, others frowned. A few locals looked uneasy. But Marcus was too caught up in the moment to see the warning in their faces. He lifted the cup, pretending to tilt it accidentally. Then, in one careless motion, the coffee spilled, splashing across the bright red uniform. The sound of liquid hitting fabric was sharp, almost surgical against the quiet drizzle. Marcus gasped theatrically. "Oh no, I'm so sorry. Mate, didn't mean to." He smiled to the camera, fully expecting a laugh, a reaction, something. But what he didn't notice was how quickly the air changed. The crowd froze. The laughter stopped. The guard didn't flinch, but his stillness now carried something different. Authority. Control. In that moment, unseen to Marcus, a silent signal had already been sent. From the corners of the courtyard, plainclothes security began to move, not running, but closing in with calculated calm. Tourists stepped back, whispering. One woman put a hand over her mouth. Sarah's voice trembled. "Marcus, we need to leave. Now." He waved her off, still playing for the camera. "It's just coffee, babe. Look, here's fine." Then came a firm voice behind him. "Sir, step away from the guard. Now." Marcus turned, startled to see a woman in casual clothes but with an unmistakable tone of command. A badge flashed. "Metropolitan Police, Specialist Protection Unit. You need to come with us." Marcus blinked. "Wait, what?" "It's coffee. It was a joke." But his words drowned under the sudden buzz of radios and murmurs spreading through the crowd. 2 more officers appeared, guiding him firmly by the arm. Sarah followed, pale and shaking. The guard, Lance Corporal Mitchell, never moved, coffee dripping down his uniform as if it were rain. The world Marcus had seen as a playground of pranks suddenly felt cold and heavy with consequence. As he was escorted toward the waiting police vehicle, he glanced back one last time. The guard still stood perfectly still, the picture composure. But around him, the palace gates were sealed, the courtyard tense, and the tourists hushed. That's when it finally hit Marcus. He hadn't just embarrassed himself. He'd crossed a line he didn't even know existed. And soon, the entire world would know about it. Lance Corporal James Mitchell had stood at his post through wind, rain, and roaring crowds. He had faced combat in Afghanistan, guarded royal processions, and witnessed more tourists than he could ever count. But this, coffee dripping down his crimson uniform, was different. He didn't move. He didn't flinch. His training demanded stillness. Yet beneath the surface, 1,000 calculations flickered through his mind. Threat? Intentional? Chemical? He silently tapped the coded signal from his gloved hand, a movement invisible to most eyes, alerting his unit that a potential breach had occurred. To onlookers, he was a statue in red. To his comrades, he was a live alert beacon standing inside the heart of one of the most guarded places on Earth. Within moments, the security web around Buckingham Palace tightened. Cameras zoomed in. Facial recognition systems began their silent analysis. Plainclothes officers, the same ones tourists thought were just bystanders, subtly closed the circle. And James Mitchell stayed still. Even as the coffee seeped into the wool of his uniform, even as the curious murmurs turned to silence, his jaw locked. For him, it wasn't about pride. It was about duty. While Marcus Thompson, the American prankster, was being led away by officers, Mitchell remained rooted in place. A small patch of brown stained his tunic, an insult to the uniform that symbolized everything he'd sacrificed for. But he didn't let emotion win. His orders were simple: remain composed until relieved. He had seen worse. He'd seen real threats, explosions, gunfire, soldiers injured in ambushes. Compared to that, a splash of coffee was nothing. And yet, in its own way, it cut deeper. That guard post represented discipline, respect, and history. To be treated like a prop for someone's joke felt like being stripped of all of it. As security teams moved in to assess the situation, an officer approached discreetly. "Code yellow confirmed," she murmured. "We'll handle the investigation. Corporal." Mitchell gave the faintest nod, his eyes still fixed straight ahead. His back ached from standing, his face numb from the chill. But he didn't move. Not until the palace clock struck and his relief arrived hours later. Only then did he finally step back, salute, and march inside the guardhouse. Inside, the stillness broke. The coffee had dried stiff across his tunic. Fellow soldiers glanced up as he entered. Sergeant Major William Harris, a towering man with decades of service, looked him over. "You all right, Mitchell?" "Yes, sir," he replied quietly. The older man nodded. "The footage is everywhere already. It's all over social media. Some people think it's funny. Most don't." Mitchell sat down, removing his bearskin hat. His hair was damp with sweat, his hands trembling slightly from the chill, or maybe from holding it all in. "What's the official line, sir?" "The palace is releasing a statement. They are reminding the world that the guards are active military, not performers. The police are treating this as an assault." Mitchell exhaled slowly. Assault! Such a heavy word for something as trivial as coffee, but he knew it was correct. The act had violated more than personal space. It had breached the honor of service. He gazed at the stained uniform folded beside him. 4 years. He had polished each button and crease with precision. Now it was a symbol of humiliation, perhaps, but also of restraint. Outside, the press was already spinning the story. American tourist pranks royal guard. Palace security breached over coffee cup. And yet, the truth was deeper than a headline. Mitchell wasn't angry for himself. He was angry at the idea that so many people saw soldiers as decoration, not defenders. That in a world obsessed with viral fame, dignity had become a backdrop for entertainment. Later that evening, as he prepared a report for his commanding officer, his phone buzzed with a message from his girlfriend, Emma. Proud of you for keeping your composure. The world seeing your strength today. He smiled faintly, the first real smile in hours. He hadn't wanted fame. He hadn't sought headlines. But now, the name Lance Corporal James Mitchell was trending worldwide, not for heroism in battle, but for grace under provocation. And somewhere across town, the man who threw the coffee sat in an interrogation room, learning that the harmless joke had become an international security case. What neither of them knew yet was that their lives, the soldier and the prankster, were now permanently intertwined. One would become a symbol of discipline and respect. The other would learn the hard way that laughter built on humiliation comes at a price. The next day, the tabloid screamed. Coffee on the Queen's Guard, tourists arrested after prank gone wrong. And as the investigation deepened, the story would transform from a foolish act into a worldwide conversation about respect, duty, and redemption. Because when the world laughs at one man's mistake, sometimes it takes another man's silence to teach them what honor really means. When the story hit the headlines, it spread faster than any royal rumor. Within hours, videos of Marcus Thompson splashing coffee on a guard flooded social media. Millions watched in disbelief. Some laughed. Most were outraged. Words like disrespect, entitled, and unforgivable filled the comment sections. In Chicago, Marcus' phone was taken away. His face was on every major news channel. What had started as a vacation prank had become a diplomatic embarrassment. He sat in a sterile London police interview room, staring at photographs of the very moment he thought would make him famous. Now, it was evidence. Detective Inspector Helen Crawford entered, calm and professional. She placed the photos on the table, Marcus smiling, coffee midair, the guard unflinching. Mr. Thompson, she said gently, this wasn't a joke. You assaulted a serving member of Her Majesty's Armed Forces while on duty. That's a serious offense. Marcus stammered, it was just coffee. I didn't mean. Intent isn't the issue, she interrupted softly. Action is. Those words sank deep. For the first time, Marcus saw his act not as a prank, but as a moment of selfish blindness. He had turned a soldier's dignity into a joke, and now the world was teaching him just how costly that joke was. The investigation revealed everything. The planning, the videos, the posts about getting a reaction from the Royal Guard. It was no longer a harmless mistake. It was premeditated humiliation. Meanwhile, Lance Corporal James Mitchell was becoming an unlikely hero. Veterans praised his composure. Parents used his photo to teach their kids about respect. Newspapers described him as a soldier who never flinched. Yet Mitchell himself wanted no glory. In quiet moments, he told his commanding officer, "Sir, I just want this to remind people that we're human. That's all." Across the ocean, Marcus' parents watched the news in disbelief. His mother wept during interviews, saying, "We raised him better than this. He made a mistake, a terrible one, but is not a bad person." When Marcus finally stood in court, the room was silent. The media lights flashed as Judge Margaret Whitfield read through the charges. "Mr. Thompson," she said sternly, "you treated a soldier's entertainment and violated sacred duty with arrogance. But you've also shown remorse. You've accepted responsibility. That's worth something." The sentence came down. 18 months imprisonment, suspended, 300 hours of community service, full restitution. But the most powerful part wasn't the punishment. It was what came next. You will spend 100 of those hours working with veterans. The judge continued, to learn what service, sacrifice, and honor truly mean. Months passed. Marcus began volunteering at a veterans rehabilitation center in Chicago. At first, it felt like punishment. But over time, something changed. He listened to men and women talk about battle, loss, and discipline. One veteran, Robert Martinez, told him quietly, "When you threw that coffee, you weren't just hitting a man. You hit what every soldier stands for. But you've got a chance to make that right. Use it." Those words broke through. Marcus started recording a different kind of video, not for laughs, but for awareness. He used his social media platforms to honor the people he once mocked. He shared the stories of the veterans he met, their strength, their pain, their humanity. Back in London, James Mitchell, now promoted to corporal, continued to serve with quiet pride. His experience had led to stronger protections for guards and deeper public respect for their service. He sometimes saw tourists look at him differently now, not as a statue, but as a soldier. And though they never met, Mitchell and Marcus were tied forever by one moment, one that had changed both of their lives in opposite ways. Mitchell had shown the world the power of restraint. Marcus had learned the cost of thoughtlessness. Together, unknowingly, they had created a lesson that would echo around the world. Respect isn't earned by power. It's earned by understanding. As the video of that infamous prank still circulates online, people continue to debate what it meant. Some see it as a story of punishment. But the truth? It's a story of growth. A careless man learned humility. A disciplined soldier reminded the world what dignity looks like. And a moment of mockery became a moment of education for millions. Next time you travel, next time you hold your phone ready to record something funny, ask yourself, is it worth someone else's respect? Because behind every uniform, every tradition, every role we take for granted, there's a human being with a story. And sometimes it takes one man's mistake for the rest of us to finally see it. If this story moved you, if it made you think twice about respect, empathy, or the power of second chances, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more true life royal and emotional stories, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like this remind us that behind every headline, there's a heart. And every mistake can still lead to redemption if we're willing to learn from it.